The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
You stick 100 driving instructors in a room and ask them where to place an L plate. They'll have 100 different answers, and they'll all argue with each other about which one is right. God forbid we actually start talking about something serious. No, it's where you put an L plate. That's really important stuff. So we are generally an industry that. I'm going to say it, has delusions of grandeur as well. But there you go, I've said it.
I like that, but I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, just to expand on that a little bit. In what way do you think we've got, you have to excuse my pronunciation, in what way do you think we've got delusions of grandeur?
We're not necessary. Okay? We are not necessary. And your green badge in your window does not permit you to teach. It is not a license to teach. It's a license to charge. That's very different. Okay, because other than your restrictions, so the law, anybody can go out and do what we're doing. The only thing they can't do is charge. So that's what your green badge gives you the permission to do. And we do not have the evidence that we are worth our while. There is not, and it doesn't mean that we're not, but I'm just saying that we do not have statistical evidence that proves that we are making people safer. In fact, we could be really cynical and we could look at driving tests and we could look at our young people who pass their driving tests, of who the majority are being trained by driving instructors. And actually what happens in that moment that they are given a pass certificate, they go from being the safest people on the road to being the people who are at the most risk. So actually, what does that say about the training that is being provided? Is it fit for purpose? Is the driving test fit for purpose? If actually we are putting people on the road who then become the most risk. And we don't have that statistic. We cannot justify ourselves. I would love to have a randomized control trial of which you had 10,000 people who learnt to drive in their own way, perhaps with their parents, perhaps, just pottering around or maybe watching some videos, etc., and a trial group that had 40 hours with a driving instructor and looked at the statistics, and not just pass rates, not just how many faults somebody comes away with, but how many people have crashed in that first year, and God forbid, how many have been killed or been in accidents that, or crashes, should I say, that have involved serious injuries. It would just be fascinating. Now, don't get me wrong, because I do sound like I am kind of poo-pooing the industry a little bit, but I hope that gives you a little bit of understanding about where I'm at with that whole justifying ourselves. And when I look at driving instructors who, particularly in these last 48 hours, are banging the drum about the fact that they need fuel to go to work and how important their job is, I defy anybody to not find people in the queue this evening who will not tell you that their job is important and they need fuel. Where we're all at in that whole animal farm, who is greater than who kind of pecking order, if you like, is I guess a personal opinion. But there we go.
I have to admit, that's not a route I was expecting us to take during this conversation, but it's one I largely agree with. I think, like you say, there's no necessity there. Maybe that's a bit extreme. We've all, I'm sure, had students where they would have struggled to learn to drive without an instructor. They've maybe not got access to private practice. But I think you look again over the past year, look at the amount of people that have learned to drive with their parents and that have, taken tests in private cars. Now, whether, we agree with that or not is almost irrelevant. They've still done it. So, like you said, it's almost minimizing our need. And I think there's been a lot of talk. Maybe not talk, maybe the odd voice shouting here and there that we should go on strike to oppose the new standard check philosophy and that side of it. To me, I think if we went on strike, it would show even more that we're not needed.
Yeah. it would be yesterday's news, not pretty quickly. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting theory, and I think that, don't get me wrong, I've felt that from the moment I kind of have stepped into the industry. Does that mean that I go out there and don't try my best? Of course not. Does it mean that I don't hope that the little part of the world that I'm involved in is changed for the better because of me? Of course not. I absolutely will give 100% to what I'm doing with absolutely the best intentions and motives. Whether I make a difference or not can't necessarily be quantified or justified.
I am going to put you on the spot slightly. Feel free not to answer because it is hypothetical, but you mentioned before about sort of a controlled experiment almost between those that have been trained by instructors and those that haven't. How do you think the outcome of that would be like? What do you reckon it'd be like?
Not statistically significant.
No,
they would not, or if anything, it would disprove our need. And that's the scary thing. And in fact, as an instructor, I won't be banging the drum for that to happen because I do believe that there is, of course, a distinct possibility that we would not have evidence of the need for us to exist.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.